Shalom. I'm going to start by giving all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Akar Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Salutation to the awfully elect that is wishing this word in the four corners, the highways and byways. Once again, all praises, glory, and honor is due to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Akar Alright? Hey, and the lesson for today is women. Alright? You know, that classic topic. Alright? But yet still is something we have to speak on. Alright? You know, brothers and elders have already made hundreds, maybe thousands of videos upon this topic. Alright? But hey, ever so often it's good to give yourself a reminder, alright? And just remind the brotherhood as well, because especially in these times, alright, you shouldn't be listening to these women, alright, because these demons out here is getting real active. And the scriptures say what? The woman is a weaker vessel, which is basically to say, these women gonna have a lot of demons upon them in these times. Alright? And demon means what? Intelligent. Sometimes you ask a woman if she gets a man and she can tell you no. Because the demon already discerned that if she say yes, you're not gonna want to deal with her. Alright, so what? She lied to you, because she receiving instructions from the demon. Alright, and that's why the apostle always say you gotta go by the spirit, alright, when it comes to dealing with these women. Alright, because their word is really fit for nothing. You still gotta examine them. You still gotta examine the spirit. Alright? Hey, and the scripture say what? This is Ecclesiastes 7 and 26. 26, it says, "And I find more bitter than death the woman whose art is snares and nets." Alright, so you gotta watch certain conversation with these women, alright? Because they're really set up in this time to be a stumbling block, alright? To pull you down basically, alright? And that's why the scriptures say, "I find more bitter than death the woman whose art is snares and nets." Alright? And that's why these women act the way that they do. In every conversation, alright, they're never truthful or direct with their conversations. They're always going around, coming around. They're trying to trap you up, right? Because they want to establish some sort of dominance over you, and that's the job of a demon, That's the job of a demon, all right? Hey, obviously we can get, there is the elect women, all right? But guess what? Majority of women right now, even the elect women, all right, they're gonna come with demons, So you gotta be careful out here, right? Remember, the scripture said the Most High have deprived her of wisdom, So these women really is not, individuals that you should be taking seriously in these times, You shouldn't be taking these women seriously in these times. Hey, if the Most High give you a woman that is obedient to you, all right, that play a role to the best of our ability, then, thank the Most High for that, all right, and deal with that woman. But as far as majority of these women, that want to play games, all right, that, is into hookup culture and these type of stuff like that, you gotta left them on the heights, all right? Don't get too attached to them, you know? All right? And this is wisdom. Well, all right? Because it tells you right here, it says, on our hands is bonds, whosoever pleaseth the Most High shall escape from her, but the sinner shall be taken by her. Right? Whosoever pleaseth the Most High shall escape from her. All right? You don't want to get trapped, like two-third out here with a sickening baby mother, all right, or with multiple baby mama, all right, having, just having all sort of attacks in the flesh from women, all right. Also too, you don't want to hold on to a chick that is, putting you in a fucked up position, all right, that is not, coming in a womanly spirit. Meaning what? Meaning a servant. Meaning she isn't an helpmate unto you. All right. All right. Meaning she don't add to the household. She's just a bill. All right. And a sex toy. You don't want to grab hold of a woman like that. All right. Let me read this real quick. This is Sirach 26 and verse 7. It says, an evil wife is a yoke shaken to and fro. He that had hold of her is as though he held a scorpion. All right? Right, so you don't want to hold on to a woman that ain't right in the spirit and ain't trying at least to be right, All right? You gotta evaluate this situation, all right? Evaluate these women and see what exactly they bring to the table, all right? Or even also you got to see what exactly they want, because in this day and age, not because a woman want to have sex with you means she want to be your wife, Sometimes she just want to have sex with you, all right? And that's the reality of the situation, All right? Sometimes she just want to, be in a relationship with you for a little while, a 3-4 months, She just wants some company and some dick because maybe she, break up with somebody, all right? And she feeling kind of lonely. Well, she don't see you as a long-term solution, all right? Or a long-term situation, All right? This is the realities that we're dealing with, all right? Hey, in a perfect world, all right? Which this world is far from perfect, all right? In a perfect world, it would have been that, hey, you had sex with this woman, All right, y'all enter into a covenant. She be your wife, you be her husband. You know, but guess what? We're not. This isn't. We're not in our kingdom as yet. All right. This place is fucked up. All right. The minds of the people is polluted, and these women worse yet. All right. So you have to be careful. All right. You have to be careful and don't take the scriptures, out of context. All right. All right. This is all right. This is Job 39. And still, I'm gonna start at. Let's start verse 13. It says, "Givest thou the goodly wings unto the peacocks, or wings and feathers unto the ostrich, which leaveth their eggs in the earth, and warmeth them in the dust." All right. And this is, because Job was prophesying at this point. Job was having visions of this time. All right. And this is speaking about the women of the nation of Israel. All right. The Most High refer to them as ostrich, as peacocks. All right. Now, when you look up these two animals, they're some of the dumbest animals. All right. They got a little bit tiny brain. All right. Some of the smallest brain to body ratio. You know. This is where you get the term, bird brain from. All right. All right. Because, hey, these women, they don't use wits out here. All right. And I'm talking more so to the women of the nation of Israel, but especially the Judite women, all right? The so-called black women, all right? Why would you think it's okay to have 3, 4, 5 baby fathers? You know? Look at the way they dress, all right? Look at the way they carry themselves, They're always loud, you know? They're not pleasant, very rude, you know? All right. So, hey, we have to remember who we're dealing with. You have to remember who we're dealing with. All right. Scripture say deal with them according to wisdom. You know? All right. Let me skip to verse 17 to get a point. It says, because the Most High had deprived her of wisdom, neither had he imparted to her understanding. All right. So, hey, these women as dumb as a rock. All right. All their wisdom or knowledge is rooted in wickedness. You know, is rooted in this kingdom. All right, in things of this kingdom. You know. All right. You know, even you know, some of the women that you meet in this place that, you know, might have their own stuff going on. All right. You know, they got their own place, their own money, and whatever, what's not. And you might be thinking, you know, this is a decent chick. You know, she got some level of sense in her head. Hey, don't ever make the mistake. All right. Don't ever make the mistake. Right. I mean, I made it before, you know, plenty of times. All right. But guess what? These women, if you don't deal with them according to the spirit, all right, you don't find yourself in trouble. You know, you're gonna find they fucking up your spirit. All right.
Please insert an SD card.
You know, a lot of these women out here isn't healthy for brothers to be with. You know, and those were Corinthians. You know, Paul was talking about. You know, matter of fact, let me get up. Right, 1 Corinthians 7 and verse 1. It says, now concerning the things whereof ye wrote unto me, it is good for a man not to touch a woman. All right. So this was a question was being raised in the churches. All right. But let's say a concern. All right. Because what? Even then, these women was out of order. All right. Nevertheless, to avoid fornication, let every man have his own wife, and let every woman have her own husband. All right. You know, so hey, just to avoid fornication, right? He said, hey, you're gonna have to deal with them. All right. You know, but guess what? It's actually good for you to hey stay away from these women. All right. Because they aren't right in the spirit and they will fuck your spirit up. Okay? Alright? So, hey, hopefully this lesson was edifying through the spirit and power of Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Kodash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Salutation to the awfully elect. I say shalom.